Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us this edition of Leap Project. I'm your host, Rex Bear, and we have Dr. Paul Cottrell with us. Now, Dr. Paul was on recently talking about the genome sequence on this coronavirus, and we're going to talk more about it. We're going to get into detail, and we're also going to see the latest numbers here and projections. So I'm currently looking at the updated map, and I'll do a quick screen share with y'all on this. This is the screen share. You can see 5,578 confirmed, and this is according to the interactive map, Wuhan coronavirus 2019-nCoV. This is global cases. This is by Johns Hopkins. So 131 people have died from this, it looks like thus far. And you can see it's in Thailand, Hong Kong, Taiwan, Japan, Macau, Singapore, Australia, the US, France, Germany, Malaysia, South Korea, Canada, Vietnam, Cambodia, Nepal, and Sri Lanka. This number, I did the math, and it looks like it's about a 2.3% mortality rate. So that's actually gone down a little bit, and hopefully that will continue. Yesterday it was about almost 3%. The day before that is a little bit higher than 3%, just looking at the numbers according to this map. And definitely a lot of people are concerned. The masks across the globe it's like there's a shortage. And I knew this was going to happen because it happens every time there's a pandemic, whether it's the swine flu or the donkey flu or the Smurf flu. The first thing to go is the masks, I've noticed. And I'm hoping that this doesn't get worse. But from what I've heard in China, from people that are actually out there, now I haven't cross-confirmed this from other sources, but from people I know in China that I trust and in Asia, they said they've shut down many factories out there. There's a lot of factories that have shut down. A lot of people can't use public transportation. If you're in public, you've got to wear a mask. And there's a lot of precautionary measures. Will it work? Well, it depends on how quick it's going to spread and how bad it's going to get. So really appreciate you coming on the podcast again, such short notice, Dr. Paul. How are you doing?
Hello, thank you. I'm doing great. So far, I don't have the virus, so I'm doing fine.
Yeah, thank goodness. Now, if you would, just real quick for our audience so they can get a brief introduction about what you're doing and what kind of education you have. You have multiple degrees. You do have a PhD and several other degrees. Could you just real quick talk to us about that? And then you're also getting into biology. You're going for another course of biology after you finish up what you're doing at Harvard currently, correct?
Yeah. So my education undergrad was at Wayne State University in Detroit. That was my dog. But Wayne State for a bachelor's degree in management and engineering. And then I did a MBA in finance, then moved from Detroit to New York, got into corporate finance and trading equities professionally, and ended up doing a PhD at Walden University, focused on algorithmic trading and using something called a horizontal control and stochastic programming, which is actually a method that is used by drones, military drones that were designed by Lear Corporation, that actually adjusts the system and looks at data points where it is, how it's flying, and projects out to try to reach its target. So it's called horizontal control. So I used that type of method and tweaked it to be able to dynamically hedge a portfolio in the oil market and the currency market for the Lehman. My data set that I used to train the algorithm was during the Lehman crash. So it was a little bit before Lehman, during the Lehman crash, and after Lehman, 10-year series. So I did my PhD in algorithmic trading. Then I did my postdoctoral work in artificial intelligence, which is more focused on two things. One piece of the postdoctoral work was on topographical finance, where you can take a look at the the financial markets and look at it in 3 dimensions. And people could just type in topographical finance, Dr. Paul Cottrell, and a whole bunch of stuff will pop up, or Dr. Paul Cottrell and artificial intelligence, and a whole bunch of stuff will pop up. The second part of the postdoctoral research that I did was tied to what is called cortical and subcortical computing, where it's mimicking how we actually think in the limbic system through the fear factors in the dopamine receptors. So what it does is it unassisted trains an algorithm on how to trade a stock. And what it does is that its fear factor is not to lose money. Just like in a biological system, the fear would be not to lose life or not to be hurt, right? So you train the algorithm similar to how we train a little child not to do this or not to do that. So I published, everything's for free. I've done lots of videos on cortical and subcortical computing for trading financial markets. And then during my PhD, my brother passed away from heart disease. So I decided after I finished my PhD to go to Fordham University for my pre-med and finish that program. And then at the same time, I was traveling back and forth between Boston and New York to work on my master's in biology so I can apply to medical school. So I'm near the end of that process. I'm working on my thesis, my master's thesis. So, so I come from a polymath kind of background. And I was an automotive engineer in Detroit for many years, and then got into corporate finance and algorithmic trading in New York, and was transitioning into the biological sciences.
Dude, that's cool. Yeah, that's fantastic. Now, how did you do during the crash or the correction back in 2009 with your algos?
Well, I mean, again, when the crash happened, I just finished my PhD, or I just finished my MBA. I finished my MBA in April of 2008, and then moved to New York. I was just looking for a finance job when I moved to New York, and it was really, really hard to find work during that. I mean, everybody was laid off. I mean, it was like an asteroid hit Manhattan. And so I got into proprietary trading and learned, how to trade financial markets. And I was on a trading floor. We call them specialists. And what I traded at that time was J.P. Morgan, ConocoPhillips, and Morgan Stanley. That's what I focused on as a specialist. And then but I remember being on the trading floor and seeing GM actually go bankrupt. That they were delisted. And being from Detroit, GM's like big. The car industry is huge in Detroit. So anything that's Ford or GM or Chrysler related, it was really weird to be on the trading floor and see the delisting of GM. So it was a strange experience. It was surreal, actually, being a Detroiter.
Yeah, I had no idea. So they took GM off the stock trading.
Yeah, they were what is called pink sheeted, and what happened was they basically went bankrupt. Remember, they went bankrupt, and they had to be restructured, and then
Yes.
they re-IPO'd.
Oh man.
And I think this was I'm trying to I think this was in 2009 when they were delisted. And I don't think I don't think they were re-IPO'd until 2011, but I could be wrong on that. But yeah, I mean, it was an interesting experience, and I learned a lot being on the trading floor. And through that, because we were dealing with very large moves in the stock market, there were high volatility. I mean, I learned trading when the VIX was averaging 50. The VIX average is now like 15. All right, or 19, and people freak out when things are like at 21. I mean, I was trading in ranges that were VIXs were like super high, and the stress levels. So you put in a position with high VIX levels, the price volatility is rapidly moving in that day, and especially in the currency markets. And if you do your money management, like you put a stop loss, everyone was getting bounced out because of the volatility was so high. So you actually did better when you didn't do stop losses, because the volatility was so high in intraday trading that you had to just ride it. You couldn't do the normal money management, risk management theory, because the system was more volatile. And that taught me that, sometimes systems are different than when they're in normal situations, and you have to think differently. And I think this is why I was trained in a very from the financial markets, I was trained in a very volatile situation. And so you kind of develop kind of like a war mentality, kind of like sometimes that people are combat vets, they have a sense, and then they can act on it because they've been in a situation that was life and death. And it's like, sometimes they call it the 1,000-yard stare. This is something very similar, something very similar. And I when it comes to systems changing, I think I have a unique perspective on it.
That's fascinating. Absolutely. And then, so you're finishing up at Harvard, and you're getting a master's degree at Harvard for biology.
For biology, focused on cancer research. Yeah.
And then after that, so you're going into another.
After that, I've applied to medical school, and because of my brother passing away from heart disease, my intention was to help people that have heart disease. So I wanted to go into a cardiology or cardiothoracic type doctor, either on a surgical side or an internal medicine side.
That's very noble of you. That's sorry to hear about your brother, man.
Yeah, he was 36 when he died from heart disease.
Jeez, was he a big drinker, or was it?
No. It's a family issue. It's like my uncle passed away at age 36, and my other uncle, this is all on my mother's side. My other uncle passed away at 46 from the same problem.
Okay. So now with what you're doing, working on artificial intelligence, nanotechnologies, biotech, and then the financial markets, you can figure out a way to make enough money to fund your research. Beautiful. That's what I'm talking about. Anyway, I'm just joking around, but at the same time, I mean, that's brilliant, man. Fantastic. So you're really focusing on biology right now, and if we can, let's talk about the coronavirus. The numbers they're showing us clearly could be off, but let's look at what they're showing us. It keeps doubling, or almost doubling, every 24 hours as far as the infection numbers. The numbers as far as the mortality rate, though, it looks like it's staying at about 3%, between 2.3 and 3% with the numbers they're giving us. What do you think?
Well, there's a few things. There's some disclosures that John Hopkins, the chart that you showed, don't mention. And one is that they're heavily funded by the philanthropy of Bloomberg. And Bloomberg was one of the organizations, on top of the Bill and Gates Foundation, that funded the think tank of Event 201. And so, some of these numbers are a little lower than some other reporting numbers. Now, I'm not saying they're doing anything nefarious, but I'm just saying that there needs to be disclosure on that production of that. The philanthropy of John Hopkins is coming from the Bloomberg philanthropic fund. But these numbers, they're starting to grow. But there are researchers in Hong Kong that have done some epidemiology modeling based on past epidemics or pandemics like the Spanish flu and the Ebola virus. And they have said that they believe that the numbers that are published are roughly 1/10 what they really should be, what they really are, the reality of it. So you see the spectrum. They're publishing about 5,000 cases that have been confirmed and about 130 or so that have died, depending on which database you look at. Because the one that you showed is about 6 hours behind some other databases that are publishing numbers. There's an organization, I think it's called B&O, that publishes a little bit quicker, but they're still publishing the 1/10 lower number than what these researchers in Hong Kong are saying the situation is. So if it's 5,000, the researchers in Hong Kong are saying it's about 50,000. Okay, but when they did their publication, when they did their announcement, their news announcement, these Hong Kong researchers, the numbers were about 4,000 in actual cases and about 81 or 82 deaths. So they were saying that the real number they believe is 40,000 confirmed cases and about 800 deaths. And they said that the doubling effect would be about 6.2 days for the doubling factor. So that means that every 6.2 days, or about a week, a little bit less than a week, there is going to be 80,000 cases, then 160,000 cases, then 320,000 cases. So when you use their data, then what will happen is that at the end of this, so if we're at about 50,000, right now, in about 2 weeks, you're talking about hitting over 200,000, right? So projection roughly by the beginning of March, we're going to be about 2.6 million cases confirmed, not deaths, but cases confirmed. And then when you take it to the beginning of April, first week of April or so, we should hit about 41 million cases confirmed. Now, it's important to notice that a lot of people, when they do projections, and you can see this even in the stock market, when you do projections, people think linearly. They don't think nonlinear, okay? People either overestimate something or underestimate something because of their linear projection. Biological systems work not linearly, they work non-linearly. And if you look at the epidemiological curves of like the Spanish flu, you would see of 1918, you would see that there was a spike that lasts for about a month and a half or two, and then it starts to die out. That's where the bulk of the infection and death takes place. So it's not correct to assume like 3 or 4 months out a linear projection of growth. The point that I'm making is that we are probably going to see this doubling effect that these researchers are talking about for the next month and a half or 2 months. And then it's going to start to peter out. And there may be a second wave that's less virulent, or it might be more virulent. We don't know. But historically, there's like a second and third wave that doesn't have as many cases of death and contagion. So I think what will take place based on this research is that we're going to probably see about 41 million cases confirmed in April, and we're probably going to see a 3 to 5% death rate from those cases.
So you're seeing a 3 to 5%. I mean, those numbers
death
are.
Rate.
I mean, that's I'm just. I don't even want to say.
And that goes back. And that goes back
really,
to what we were saying. That goes back to what we were saying in the previous podcast. That I was thinking that the death total would be in the hundreds of thousands. And this is worldwide. And the big assumption here, the big assumption is that the the outbreaks will take place in other regions of the world, not just in China. Right now, the outbreak is really in China. We have a few cases here and there around the world, right? But if the outbreak in China it happens in the United States and in Europe and elsewhere, then this is a very likely scenario.
So let's say that it is as bad as as the projections you're presenting, or it gets to that level. Do you see the government's changing the system for a while, like shutting businesses down, shutting public transportation down? Now in China, I can't confirm this, but I've got friends out there that I trust that are in Asia that are telling me reports of multiple factories shutting down in China, in certain provinces. And it's getting to the point of, it's like a complete halt almost. So what happens when you've got this machine that's running and moving constantly with economics and everything else, and all of a sudden, what is that going to do to the rest? Like, is it going to have this ripple effect?
Well, there will be economic problems, and we can see what happened during the Lehman crash as a potential data point. When companies start to shut down because they can't make a product because of the just-in-time environments that we have today, a lot of these complex systems that we create, like cars, for example, we get car parts from China or India or wherever. But when they shut down and they can't make and ship to the United States, for example, then the plants that are doing the assembly work will have to shut down and lay people off. And that less people will spend, and there's going to be a curtailment of GDP. That when the traders will start reading that in and say, you know what, I better buy bonds, I better buy gold, I better hedge with currencies, and I will start, selling stocks. So I personally believe that part of the reason why the WHO and the NIH, and other, CDC have been somewhat calm in terms of explaining the potentiality of an outbreak in the United States is to calm markets, to make sure that there isn't panic in the mutual fund markets. And people just moving into, let's say, CDs, or some sort of cash account. For example, yesterday there was a big sell-off, but as you know, when there's a big sell-off, there's usually a little bit of a mean reversion and another sell-off and a little bit a mean reversion and another sell-off. So it does in steps. So today the market was a little bit up to try to heal what the sell-off was yesterday. But if you look at a 1 month timeline of the US 10-year bond, the prices have been going up and the yields have been going down. So what does that mean? That basically means that money managers, institutional investors that have big money that actually move the market, they're moving their money in treasuries. They're taking a risk-averse situation, a position in the market, not a risk-taking. So there's a potentiality of seeing layoffs and having these sorts of economic situations on top of just not being able to move material from one location of the world to the other because plants are shut down or there's a curtailment of movement of goods and people in the world. But then there's the other issue of actual lockdown. There's a difference between just slow economic growth because people don't want to spend and go out and eat. If you think that there's going to be if you think that there's going to be a pandemic, are you going to go out and eat at your favorite restaurant? No, of course not. So the restaurant businesses, the travel businesses are going to have problems.
And let me add to that. Oh, gee, during a pandemic, would you be as prone to go to a protest around a bunch of other people? Like, it's so interesting how Hong Kong, protests, and now we're hardly hearing anything about it. And what a great way to just slow things down. No, man, no protests now. There's a virus out there. Oh, there's what going on in the news right now? What are those called? Cans of peaches? I'm being sarcastic here, but it's just, what a great way to change the attention.
Well, you make a good point, because in the United States, we're going to have elections in 2020, and it'd be interesting how it plays out if there is a pandemic during November, where we usually go to the ballot box to vote. Will there be some sort of curtailment of votes, of voting? Will it be suspended? These questions have never been really asked. You don't even hear this on the mainstream media. If this really is as bad as it could be, then some of the things that we normally assume will take place may not take place. It's kind of odd. The Super Bowl is coming up, in the United States. Was it this weekend, I think? And, it doesn't make sense
to have it.
The
Super Bowl.
Yeah, right. So I mean, but there's going to be curtailment, and I agree with you, Rex, that this is a potential opportunity. You want to call it opportunity, a potential opportunity for the New World Order to try to have more of a top-down mechanism in place through fear. Because what most people will do in a developed society, because they have a life of comfort, right? When you give them fear, their initial reaction, their knee-jerk reaction, isn't to think, but to alleviate the pain that they're in, either in a financial setting that happened with Lehman, or potentially this situation with this pandemic, with the Wuhan virus. They're going to want just give me an answer to the problem, so I can, have my bread and circus, right? And they don't really realize that, well, you know what? This might be their opportunity to do forced vaccinations, or their opportunity to try to curtail free movement of the society, because they don't want these protests to take place or whatever. There is an upswell that's taking place with Brexit, with Hong Kong, some things that are internal in the United States that are taking place that are worrisome from the New World Order perspective. So I just find it very interesting that the event 201 happened in October, and then we have this contagion that starts in December in Wuhan.
Yeah, but that's just a coincidence. That's totally just a coincidence. I mean, don't even think like that.
Why but the thing is why didn't they use here's a good example to prove that it's not a coincidence. There's a researcher named Dr. Hatfield that's releasing a new book that's called 3 Seconds to Midnight, that's dealing with a pandemic, but it's of a flu that originates from swine. Okay. And so this is a book that's been researched for a while, and that it just so happens that it's going to be released. Okay. But it was of this flu. Why didn't Event 201 focus on flu like his book? Why was it focused on coronavirus? It's just like we're programmed. It's like, I'm a big fan.
Totally coincidence, dude. Totally.
I'm a big fan of listening to.
They love us.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of listening to Noam Chomsky. Not that I agree with his politics, but I don't. But the way he articulates the argument is persuasive. And one of the best books that I read from him was called Manufactured Consensus, and he talks about how the media uses this predictive programming method to get you to buy into things. And the New World Order is using predictive programming and the manufactured consensus to allow for us to say, oh, we have this pandemic, please give me the vaccination. Forget about that. I don't know what's in it, and that I don't know the efficacy, and I don't know if I'm going to die, 10 years later from cancer because of it. Just give it to me because I want to make sure that I have my bread and circus. So we as individuals, as free thinking individuals, should be saying, no, that the government works for us. We don't work for the government. And people need to stand up and say this worldwide. We're seeing, I think one of the coolest pictures I've ever seen in the last 5 years was some Hong Kong protesters had bows and arrows. They were students. They had bows and arrows, and they wrote letters saying that they were kind of like death letters, saying that they may not survive, fighting the government. But they were using bows and arrows because they don't have guns. But I'll tell you, the spirit of that, the spirit of fighting tyranny is amazing. And this is a sign, if the New World Order, if the New World Order uses this as an opportunity for forced vaccinations, what will happen? I mean, I live in Manhattan, and it's easy to lock that Manhattan and New York down. Very easy. All right. The 5 boroughs, right? And lock it down, just like Wuhan, right? But what would happen? Let's just do this role play. I'm connected with you, doing these podcasts and stuff, and with Diamond. And let's say they locked it down, and that there is 500 cases confirmed with let's say 20 or 30 deaths in the New York area. And they do this lockdown, and they decide, you know what? And this happens in April or May, and they have the first vaccination, trials ready. And they force people in New York to take it. Some people will just say, yeah, give it to me. And there's going to be others saying no. What will people out there that are outside of this lockdown community stand up for? Will they stand up for the help and stand up for the individuals and say, hey, there should be a right, an individual self-determination here?
Let me jump in on that, because I'm listening to what you're saying, and I respect that, and I appreciate that. And yeah, people should question. People should say, hey, wait a second, it's my body. Isn't it my body? You're saying you have the right to tell me what I need to do to my body, but they don't care. And if what it really comes down to is they have enough power and control that if they want to force people into quarantine, or if they want to force vaccinations, they're going to have the manpower and the resources to do that. Now, if people want to fight it, which I'm sure that, or do their best to avoid it, there's going to be pockets of that, and they're going to do their best to make examples of that. I'm not saying this is going to happen from this event, but if it does, and if they're going to use a situation that they say, look, we need to vaccinate the population, you need to go into quarantine, or you need both. And if they say it's for national security reasons, you're not going to be able to protest, dude. You're not even going to have that opportunity. They're going to shut it down so quick it'll make your head spin. And that's the reality of the matter. So I think really the best thing that we could do is make sure that it doesn't get to be a pandemic. So those numbers, dude, I watched that video, the 201. And so weird. Why in the heck are you going to call it 201? Or was it because it's February 1st? They didn't have it on February 1st. They had it in October. So they call it 201. And it sounds so similar to Agenda 21. Like I said, you take away that 0. But you know what? It's just a coincidence. How dare you even think it's not a coincidence? You know what? And then they even had an official statement, or their statement, if you go to the website where they did these trial runs and these tabletop exercises, they specifically state that it was just a tabletop exercise and it was not a prediction. Okay, folks, yeah, all right, sure. We believe you, absolutely, totally coincidence. You were just showing us the exercises, and then a little bit over a month later, and they're like, oh, and by the way, it was a coronavirus, but it was a different strand. It was a different strain of the coronavirus. So it was told there's 1 million strains of coronavirus. It's just a conspiracy. And then you read the news and they come out and they say, conspiracy theorists state this. And if you read a headline that says conspiracy theorists state something, then you may want to pay close attention to that headline, because that's the first thing they're going to do to spin the story. Now, with that being said, I've read headlines about conspiracy theorists that make me laugh and chuckle and also make me want to puke, because it gives a bad persona for people that are out researching alternative information that isn't succumb to the 5 corporations that control 90% of what is fed into your brain. And then the science communities and the medical communities and all the other corporations that are linked to this network. It's like this umbrella. And speaking of umbrella, I haven't confirmed this yet, but I heard that one of the biolabs in Wuhan that has the capabilities, according to the mainstream reports, to create this virus or to genetically alter this virus, they have an umbrella logo very similar. Get this, wow. Folks. Oh yeah, you're waiting for it. Resident Evil, the Umbrella Corporation. Plug in. So
wow. I
want to ask you a question, Doc Paul. The virus itself, can you describe the virus to us again like you did the other day? Can we get into detail on that again in a minute? Because we've got 1,240 plus people watching this live stream. Many of them might not have seen that. And you went into great details on this virus and the way that it connects and how it works. And we talked
okay. All right. So basically the virus it's from a family called coronavirus, and there are different types. Now, this particular strand, the Wuhan strand, seems to strong affinity towards bat SARS virus, which is a coronavirus. There's different mutations, different strands, and you can do these genomic analyses at the NIH. The website's for free. So you can just go to Wikipedia and type in the novel coronavirus, and you can get that link and look at that particular. It's an ID that it starts with MN. So that's the ID code, and it has some numbers on it. And I did an analysis, and I have a video out there that someone can. It shows you how to do the BLAST query in the database at the NIH, and it takes a look at similar organisms that have this RNA. This virus is an RNA type virus. Some viruses have DNA in it, but this particular virus is a single strand RNA virus. And I did this BLAST search, and bat SARS popped up. The 2 closest strands that are about in the 80% range was bat SARS. And I go in a lot of detail why I believe that there is a high probability that this was bioengineered. Now, I don't know if it was for bioweapons or if it was for research, but I believe it was bioengineered. And what is interesting, the NIH last night, because I was doing some research last night in the genome of this, someone asked a question on my channel about a sequence for the S protein. And that S protein is what attaches to cells in the lung. The receptors that are in the lung, the S protein cups onto these receptors. So I did this analysis based on this question that came up. And what was interesting, in the database, there are now 4 other strands of Wuhan. So when we were talking, Rex, yesterday, there was only 1 that was in the database. And there has been in the news that there was about 5 strains of Wuhan. Now, what's interesting is you run this data on the new strands that are in the database, okay? They are very, very, very similar. But the strange thing about it, and people need to really pay attention to what I'm saying. I just sit down and really pay attention to what I'm saying here, Okay, this kind of adds another data point on why I think it's a bioweapon or a bioengineered type scenario. 3 of the strands that have been updated in the database, all right, their nucleotide difference between the reference one that was originally put into the database for Wuhan is at the very end of the genome, and it's all A's. So you have A, T, G, C. Everyone knows their DNA, right? So they added a sequence of A's at the very end. All right. If you have strains of a virus in a natural environment, you will not have it at the end of the genome. They would be maybe 1 or 2 nucleotides all over a 30,000 base pair genome. What's the probability of having a sequence of A's? Then that sequence is about 5 or 8 nucleotides long at the very end. All right, and they so happen to put that at very last in the database. All right, so this is just something doesn't look right, on this, but that just happened last night that I found, and that was 100% by accident because I was trying to answer this question that someone wanted me to look at this particular sequence from another SARS virus, and was it in the genome for this Wuhan? And some of the sequence is in the Wuhan, but it's not in the S protein area of the genome. It's actually in the replicase area of the Wuhan strand. Now I'll backtrack so people can understand what I'm saying. The virus is circular, all right? Inside it is an RNA strand, okay? That's the code for it to replicate. The coding has a protein, like a protein coat, and then it has spikes. The spikes is what attaches onto the cells and infects the cell. It's what we call the S protein, okay? Next to that is an M protein, which is the membrane protein, all right? And there are a couple other proteins that are involved, but primarily researchers are focused on the replicase that's in that when the virus gets into the cell, the replicate it's using the ribosomes from the infected cell to convert the positive RNA strand to a negative RNA strand, the opposite. All right. The opposite code is what codes the proteins that it needs, not the positive strand. It's the reverse. Okay. So it takes its replicase, reverses it, and then starts creating proteins. Okay. And once that happens, then it starts to package itself by a endoplasmic reticulum. It's an organelle in the cell that's packaged in the endoplasmic reticulum, and then it's transported to what is called a Golgi apparatus, and that Golgi apparatus shuttles it right to the membrane of the cell, and it spits it out. So exocytosis. So it comes in, and it does its thing, and it comes out. Now, what's interesting is that question that came up last night in one of my videos, and I just was just looking at it. The code is SHC014. If you type that into the NIH database, you'll get the actual code and the protein that gene codes for. It's typically an S protein, but for some reason, I don't know why, but for some reason, that code, around 80% of that code is in the area of the genome that codes for replicase. I don't know what that means, but it's strange because other viruses seem to have this code in a different area of the genome, like around the 23,000 base pair area, while this was moved in to a more closer to the the center of the genome. So where it codes for the replicase. Don't know what that means. I don't know. I mean, people can spend their whole life studying one virus, and I don't have time to do that. But it's strange that the database was updated last night with 4 new strands of Wuhan. We've been told when this outbreak took place that there were 5 strains. Okay. And 3 of the 4 that were added to the database have this multiple A nucleotide tag at the very end of the genome that the original Wuhan strand did not have, which is really strange to me. It could be, there may be some reason, and maybe a virologist can explain it, but it just looks really strange to me. All right. But that's the latest and greatest, from just, monkeying around on the blast search and the NIH database. But I suspect that I think there's strong evidence that this was bioengineered.
It's definitely something that makes you question, especially with what is going on, whether it's natural or artificial or engineered. And then you look at the, I don't know what I would call this, circumstantial evidence, such as the Wuhan facility that has the capability to, at least according to reports, genetically engineer a virus like this. And then you look at the time frame of it being the Chinese New Year. You look at the protests in Hong Kong. You look at the can of peaches that are going on here in the States with the polls of ticks. And if you add it all together, I mean, it's just like, and then combined with the event 201. Now, once again, like you said, you feel that this is by design, and many people do as well. And I'm not going to give my opinion, at least here, because it doesn't matter. But I will say it is very, very suspicious. And I mean, anybody would question this. Wouldn't anybody that can think for themselves question the narrative when you put this together and just say, oh, well, you know what? It's like when you go out and you buy a car that's a red Toyota. You've never seen that red Toyota before you buy the car. Now you see it everywhere. Well, hey, I get it. However, let's look at the evidence again and say, is it really the red Toyota or is there more to it? I don't know. I'm presenting the information and I'm looking at this as a clearly agnostic approach. You guys and gals decide. It's up for you to decide. But this is the information that this is a gentleman that has actually looked at the data, knows how to read these codes to a degree to where he can give an opinion on it. So, and we're not the only ones saying this. There's even mainstream outlets talking about this possibly being bioengineered. And so but look, there's been plenty of times in the past. Well, I'm going to do it. Let's do a disclaimer here. Let's do a disclaimer. Can I call it a devil's advocate disclaimer? How many times in the past, and I don't want to get into details on this, but how many times in the past has something happened on a TV show, a music video, a cartoon, a movie, and shortly after, almost something very similar happens in real life? At least what they tell you is real life, because then the media presents in the news about an event that takes place that's very similar to what happened in a movie. And they'll say, oh man, you're a conspiracy theorist. You're talking about movies again. Well, what hasn't happened in the movies that's happened in real life? It's kind of hard not to. So definitely, I know there's been things that have happened in the past where maybe the writer was just tapping into the Akashic records. Maybe they were just, it's like having that precognition. Precognition happens all the time. I get it. So was it just like one of those things that was a real similar circumstance, very, but not quite exactly the same strain of virus, not quite exactly the same location? But if you watch those exercises, folks, if you watch that 11-minute video, which is basically the cliff notes of this project, this 201 event, pandemic exercise, tabletop exercises, where they said, you know what, the social media platforms are going to have to get together and say that they're not just tech companies anymore, and they're going to have to connect and work with big businesses and scientists. And essentially, to me, they were saying you're going to have to hook up to the Borg and do what the Borg says. And when I'm referring to the Borg, I'm referring to the mainstream consensus of what is right and what is wrong. What is right for you? What is right for your body? Who decides what's right for your body? You shouldn't question the narrative. You should just go with the flow. And how dare you say that somebody might consider doing something like this? I mean, it's all just totally natural, dude. Totally just a coincidence. I'm really shocked that you would question this, man.
Well, what's interesting is the government's Security Council in the United States, their biggest nightmare wasn't nuclear war or anything like that. It was actually bio. It was like a bioweapon. So they view that as the highest level, because it's something that you can't control. With nuclear weapons, you can sort of control the location and the blast area and the radiation levels and all that. When you're talking about biological, it could come back to you, right? You release it and it can infect you, right? Unless you have an antidote.
That's why I feel, you just hit the nail on the head. That's why I feel that if this was designed by the MFers, those that love us so much, if it was designed by then it wouldn't be as detrimental as many people are thinking it could be, in my opinion. They're going to have some way to control it. Otherwise, they wouldn't allow that Pandora out of the box.
Do you want to get scared?
Dude, I'm kind of callous to this.
All right.
It takes a lot.
Let me scare everybody here. All right. As I told you about the multiple A tags on the genome, step back a little bit. Our body creates RNA from our DNA, right? And that RNA is in the nucleus, but for it to transport out, it converts into something called an mRNA, a messenger RNA, and that has some tags on the front of the RNA and the back end of the RNA. Okay, and on the back end of that RNA are multiple repeat. We call it a tag tail. So what is interesting here is when you look at the genomes of these viruses, they are its own genome. It's not a messenger RNA. There's different types of RNA. There is nucleic genomic RNA, a messenger RNA, and a small nuclear RNA. They're all types of RNA. But this particular thing that was loaded into the database, the three new ones out of the 4, there's a total of 5 of the Wuhan virus. But 3 of them have this tag. It has similarities to a very big messenger RNA. What that means, I don't know, but it's weird.
It would be interesting
because the virus doesn't make messenger RNAs. Our body makes messenger RNAs. The virus codes a negative strand, and then first it makes its replicase, creates a negative strand to create its proteins, and duplicates the RNA, because it takes the negative strand, copies it, all right, which would turn into a positive strand, repackage, and then spit it out of the cell. Okay, that's how it works. But it's not in the nucleus, and it's not using tagged A's at the tail end. and using these 7G multiple phosphate groups that are at the front end of the 5'. An RNA has a 5' and a 3'. 3' is the tail, 5' is the head. So the head has a 7G. It has a cap, we call a 5' cap, and this tail is this poly A tail. All right, at the 3'. This is weird that it was uploaded into the database with its tail, poly tail. I don't know why, but it's weird that it has similarities to a messenger RNA. Why that is, I don't know. Is someone trying to say something? Is it just an artifact during the sequencing? But when you would think that they took the time to wait to put it into the database, you would think that they would have made sure it was right, and they did it 3 times wrong. I mean, I can see maybe 1 wrong, but 3 of them wrong. It's weird. It's weird.
Yeah, it is, absolutely. And with that being said, somebody made the comment about, where did it go? Oh, here we go. Yeah, so in GMU in Virginia, a student is being monitored. So I guess that's just a comment about somebody that might have the coronavirus that they're checking out in the States. And hopefully that'll come back negative. But there was somebody else said that there are masks, just the N95 masks, which might not even work very well. I've heard you need the N100s because of the size of this virus. But someone said the N95 masks are going for $100 a piece. Well, geez, I've still got dozens, if not more, from like the swine flu. So maybe I need to stop this podcast real quick and go upload these suckers on eBay. I guess that isn't funny, but it is. I'm using it's called, how do I put it? I guess when things get serious, sometimes I'll do my best to use humor to not get too serious, but because sometimes that can be bad. I mean, because if you're too serious and if you're in this fear-based mindset, first of all, you're losing your creative flow. You're in fight or flight. And if you're in this major fear motion, then you're going to have these chemicals created in your body, which can have problems. You can have some, what I call opportunities. So anyway, but still though, it is, if this goes out to be not a big deal, and as far as the numbers, and if it kind of just takes its course and such, then I guess we can look back and laugh at that and say, yeah, because I've got tons of these dust masks and these N95s, and I think some N100s from the swine flu. And I could literally go on eBay right now, and if they're going for $100 a pop, I could charge $100 a pop. But you know what? I wouldn't feel right about doing that. I would feel like there would be some type of karmic imbalance, whether it was somewhere, whether it was real karma or karma that I created myself. I wouldn't feel good about doing that, but maybe a few bucks a piece.
Well, you're making a good point. There's several good points, but one that popped in my mind was, if you look at these talking heads on the economic shows, like CNBC or even the Asian networks, and they're talking to money managers, it's about how they can make an opportunity or reduce their portfolio risk, or what to invest in because of people dying. It's the karma of this is very bad. When these individuals don't even feel like, when they're talking, I don't see a soul in them. I see them just focused on their own little world. Like, don't you realize that if this becomes bad, you may have a loved one that dies? Like, if this projection is correct, 1 out of every 40 people that will be dead. Just think about 40 people that 1 of them will be dead. That's what this means. But when these talking heads are talking about how they can make money or reduce their, move the money this way, or invest in Tamiflu, companies, or this vaccination company, they're taking opportunities like this to try to make a buck. I think erodes at the soul of the human spirit. And it's crazy to me. And you see it on Bloomberg, you see it on whatever it is, CNBC, and but
The
it's
Communist
really,
News Network as well.
but it's sad. It really is sad. It's either they're giving you fear, it's doom and gloom, and hide, under the table, bomb shelter, or it's how you gonna rebalance your portfolio so you can retire. It's like, dude, there's some things that you just stand up for and you just try to, help people independent of the monetary gain out of it. Kind of like, I like movies, so I think a good example of this was Schindler's List. It's a great movie from Spielberg. And what did this guy do? He made all his money on the war machine during World War II with the Nazi party. But what did he do? He spent all of it to save Jews. And that spirit of, like seeing, what, this is really bad, we need to do something, it rises up. But I don't see it in these news networks at all. And it's like these money managers, they are, I'll tell you, they don't have most of them don't have a soul. They're just like, there's nothing there. There's nothing there. It's weird.
Certainly I appreciate anybody that works to earn, their living. If they believe in what they're doing, even if I don't, I can respect that. However, when there's people out there that are making a lot of money on something that I see and can feel as being a negative to the people that they're providing it for, or especially with like, oh, this is the solution, this is it. And then it actually has the opposite effect. And I'm not going to get into specifics here, folks. You can come up with your own conclusions here. You can connect the dots. But you're right. So maybe that explains it. Maybe we shouldn't be mad at these people, dude. Maybe instead of just being furious with the NWO, we should have sympathy for them, or not sympathy, but empathy. Because if they don't have the same feelings that we do, if they don't have a conscience that like similar to us, if they were raised different, their DNA and their construct is different, then how can we judge them if they can't judge themselves?
I agree with you. They're probably on a different frequency. But here's the problem. Their frequency is trying to destroy our frequency. And there's the issue. It's not like we can live together because one's trying, we could live with them if they leave us alone. But they don't want to leave us alone. They want to control us. And the human spirit wants self-determination. They want to kill the human spirit.
There's the unfortunate thing is the human nature with some people, some individuals, they have such a mindset of control, and some people have so much power, and they've gotten that control and that power from just doing the worst things. It's like the most sociopathic people sometimes can rise the ranks of power because their conscience doesn't limit them to people like you, like me, like others that watch Leak Project, like others that have compassion for not just humanity, but the animals and the landscapes and the earth. We look at things different, and we have a conscience. We're not willing to go down certain rabbit holes or do specific things because we wouldn't be able to sleep with ourselves at night. And so I think that with talking to you about this, man, and what you were saying earlier about, shouldn't people have the right to make a decision on what they put into their body? I absolutely believe people have that right. That's their temple. And if somebody tells me what to put in my temple, well, who made you God? Who made you my creator? And if you were my creator and then you told me what I had to do, what? That kind of, really? So I totally respect that. However, I see the reality of the matter, and it comes down to who has the biggest toys, who has the most money, and who has the most control. And with this hive mindset that is being projected, everything from the digital enterprise, bringing everything into this cloud network, it all seems to be cyclical. So we're going through a similar events that took place at another time in the cycle that was similar to this, but just a little bit different. So what do we do this time to make sure that we stop it before it gets to that point where the MFers can use their toys and their technologies and their devices to come up with this plan? Because you know what? For every action, there's an opposite and equal reaction. You have to imagine it before it can happen. So we need to have an optimistic mindset. We need to keep this this thought pattern alive of solutions. So let's talk about this. Let's transition. What do we do as a solution for ourselves? How can we protect ourselves from this virus? Well, the first thing you got to do, folks, is remember, you got to wash your hands. Don't use hand sanitizer. Use real soap. And then also, don't rub your eyes. Don't put your hands on your face if you're out in public. That's one simple thing that you can do that will cut it down. You know, if I go back 15 years ago, this guy that I worked with for a while, I was helping him with his auto dealership because he was the only one there. And he very rarely got sick. And he made that very clear. He's like, dude, I never get sick. And he had this gnarly flu going on. He's like, I can't believe how sick I am right now because I never get sick. And I remember shaking his hand and then rubbing my eye. And right when I did that, I was like, oh, bleep. I knew right when I did that I was going to get sick. And sure enough, dude, within hours, I felt sicker than a dog. You know what I'm saying? So that's one thing that just remember. Yeah, I mean, you got a lot of stuff on here. You got pumping fuel. You're out, got money in your hands and all this other stuff. What do we do? Wash our hands. We don't rub our eyes. We don't put our hands all over our face. That's the simple thing. But what else can we do? And I want to get your take on this.
Well, I think that individuals that are using masks, they need to understand that the masks primarily are not to prevent you from getting sick. It's really from you spreading. Like, for example, why do doctors wear masks in the OR? It's not for the doctors to protecting themselves from a disease from the body that's on the table. It's the disease from the doctor giving it to the patient. So they put masks on to protect the patient. So the individuals around you, all right, this is kind of like a social difference. Individuals that think that they put a mask on, just one of these cloth masks, all right, these 95s or 100s, if they put the cloth mask on, it's really to prevent you from giving other people what you have. Okay, people don't realize that most of these masks aren't sealed. They're not like gas masks. The gas masks protect you from the environment. A really good seal, eyes, ears, nose, the ears, everything, all those orifices. All right. These cloth masks aren't going. You could easily get something in your ear, and it goes down the eustachian tube and gets into your throat, and you still could get it. All right, or in your eye. These masks don't have eye coverings. So masks, a lot of people don't realize that if they keep on using the mask, they're breathing in and out from it, and they are in effect making it moist, and mold and bacteria can grow on it. So if you're reusing your mask, especially if the supplies are low, you possibly can give yourself an infection that's not even corona, but it could be something even worse. You could give yourself a pneumonia from your own breath. And people don't realize this. So, honestly, stay away from large gatherings, especially if there's individuals in your area that have been confirmed with the virus. But I would not reuse masks at all. I would actually try to not use a mask and just have that free flow of air pressure. I would make sure that a lot of people, they pick around their ears and stuff. You can get stuff in your ear and get infections. I think also there is a homeopathic part of this. Homeopathic, I'm not saying it's a panacea. It's not. I'm telling you, homeopathic remedies for an emergency, like this is not a panacea. Okay, but homeopathic remedies could boost up your immune system. That if you do get it, you can have more strength, more power to fight it. Okay, if you have a declined immune system, then it's going to be harder to fight this virus. So I believe you got to have iodine, you got to have filtered water, and that filtered water has to be at least a 5 filtration system, 5 layer filtration system, not a 3-layer filtration system. So you need iodine to saturate your thyroid. That will help with proper hormonal balance. All right. The filtered water to make sure that you're hydrated, you don't have the fluoride, and your thyroid is working right, and your endocrine system. I even wrote a paper on the endocrine system that people can just type up, and it'll give you ssrn.com, and you can just download it. But having a healthy endocrine system is really important. You can get that very simply through iodine supplementation, which is the drops that are under your tongue, and filtered water. Then you want to boost up with that vitamin C. Probably about 500, probably about 5,000 milligrams worth of vitamin C per day, just to keep those, keep your body. But you excrete that regularly, so you don't want to put 5,000 in right away. You want to put like 1,000 in, wait 2 or 3 hours, put another 1,000 in, so you have a steady level in your bloodstream, because you do excrete it through your kidneys pretty rapidly. Drinking lots of water, a minimum 60 ounces a day. I think that you want to suppress inflammation. So having like the turmeric type supplements and doubling that dose than what you would normally take if you take turmeric regularly, I would double that amount. There's not really toxicity with turmeric, so it will lower inflammation and boost your immune system, that if it does come in, it will help fight it. There's I would say D3 and K2 M7. So there's D3 is a supplement, K2 is another supplement, but there's different forms of K2, and there's a M7 version of it.
Let me jump in on that real quick if I can. This is actually a perfect time for me to talk about a great product, which is actually one of my sponsors, that is called Boomer Boost. And you said D3, and D3. Yeah, so that one of the pills that I get, that's actually 2 big pills of D3, and it is awesome, dude. Like this Boomer Boost stuff that I'm taking, it's essentially a scoop of vitamins that has a multitude of multivitamins and such. And then I take this ancient barley that it's called gladiator barley, that goes back thousands of years, and they've like passed this certain strand from generation to generation to generation. But then it also has the D3 pills and another pill that comes with it, and some probiotics. But it's like a combo pack, and man, it is amazing. It is really really good product. But the D3 pills that it comes with, it made me think of that. They're like 2 big horse pills. D3 is good stuff, man. Folks, check it out. I've got a link in the video description box. It's called Boomer Boost. Click the link, try the products. Let them know Leak Project sent you. If you use the code Leak Project, you'll get an extra $5 off. It's a quick shameless plug. That's a good shameless plug. Brilliant. Hello.
But the reason why I was saying the D3 and the K2 M7 version of the K2 is that there have been a lot of studies for heart disease to try to reduce inflammation to reduce arteriosclerosis, because there's a big theory that it's not just the amount of lipids in your bloodstream, but it is actually inflammation that causes the depositing. So the K2 helps to decalcify these plaques and prevent new plaques from forming. So what it is it's an anti-inflammatory. So, or signs of it being an anti-inflammatory. So what happens is that and this is where the medical part of my education comes in. The body produces hormones that either try to take calcium out of the bloodstream or put calcium into the bloodstream. So what happens is that if you have a good gut, and this is why you mentioned the barley. If you have a good, if you've cleansed your gut and got all that, the crap out, literally the crap out, if you got all the bad stuff out of your gut, you can start absorbing your nutrition better. And not only that, you will be able to fight your immune system will go up. So I'm sure that you've noticed that when you take this barley, I don't take the barley, I do something differently, but but something very similar. The idea is you cleanse and then you have to repopulate with pre and probiotics. But the end result is the same. A healthy gut will allow for better endocrine dynamics. So when your system gets infected by a virus or bacteria or some sort of parasite, your system can go in a supercharge and fight it. When you have a bad gut, and the gut flora isn't correct, then you have a harder time fighting it, and you have higher inflammations. There's different types of cytokines and interleukins. Some are anti-inflammatory, some are pro-inflammatory. But you have to have the right balance. That's the keys. You have to have the right balance. So the D3 and the K2, M7 help to have balance this calcium, and it helps with the inflammation levels in the body. So, and having a multivitamin, because people don't realize, everyone says, oh, multivitamins, you just piss it out, because it's water soluble and it doesn't matter. Wrong. Most of your enzymes will need cofactors, all right, and co-proteins. You have an enzyme and it has a little attachment, and for that enzyme to work correctly, to do its thing in your cell, it has to have minerals, all right. So these are called cofactors. If you're depleted because you're sick, you don't have these as many cofactors. So you don't have enough enzymes that with the cofactors to work correctly, to fight the disease. So your immune system goes down. So this is important to make sure that you have these coenzymes and cofactors through multivitamins.
Absolutely. And for those of you that might just be joining us, I did notice somebody in the comments section, I think, that just showed up. She said, I'm here to hear about the coronavirus. What are we talking about? Well, currently we're talking about how to help your body and keep your immune system healthy. So if something does happen, we were also talking earlier about things that you can do to prevent, hopefully prevent, such as washing your hands, not touching your face, not rubbing your eyes. I don't know, maybe you missed the part about where Dr. Paul was talking about the actual masks and how certain masks are used to keep your breath from getting it toward you, to keep your breath, or if you've got a bug or something, from getting onto somebody else, versus an actual gas mask, and how if you have the right protective gear and a gas mask on, it can protect you from other people. So you may want to go back to the beginning of the podcast, because we've been talking for over an hour, and there may be a couple of minutes there where we're not specifically talking about the coronavirus. So, but we were actually referencing how to help protect your body from viruses, et cetera, and keep the immune system high. So, dude, your level of expertise is fascinating. And somebody in here also said, I used to be a microbiologist, and what Dr. Paul is saying is on point. So, thank you for that. We've got, almost 1,500 people in the chat right now. So, folks, you definitely want to subscribe to Dr. Paul's YouTube channel. Let me put his link in the live chat. I've also put his YouTube channel in the video description box, so you can click that as well. He's got a website, and let me put the link to the website in here also for you that are just joining us, so you can learn more about Dr. Paul. But now I want to jump into the incubation period if we can. Mm-hmm. So they're saying that there's like a 7 to 10 day incubation period, correct?
Well, some research, some of the reports are saying it's anywhere from 1 day to 14 days. So there are some cases where the incubation was very short. In other cases, it's very long. They don't know why, but let's just say on average, it's 7. But it's a wide spectrum. It's anywhere from 1 day to 14 days. And here's a key point. There is data points outside of China that is stating that an individual may not show that they have the symptoms, but can still pass it. And this is a key point, because a lot of diseases, there's an incubation, you start getting sick, and then you spread it, right? So, it's 5 days, and then you pass it on, on the 6th or 7th day, and that's how it carries on. This virus has been shown on 3 cases or so out of the 100, out of the 5,000 or so far, that you may not need to show symptoms, but you can still pass it on human to human. So we got to be careful that there is something unique about it. And it goes back to what I was saying in the previous podcast. The replicase with this engineered coronavirus, the replicase section of the genome and the S protein section of the genome seems to be copied from very virulent bat SARS viruses and put together. So what does this mean? It says they took the worst bat SARS from one strand, and the worst, for the S protein, and the worst from another strand that was for the replicase piece, and put it all into one strand. All right. That's this is another data point saying this is why this can be a very dangerous situation. The replicase is more efficient, so it can produce more of the stuff in your cell. All right, and it can be more attaching to the cell because the S proteins have a stronger affinity. All right, to the epithelial tissue that's in your lung. So all these cases, or most of the cases that I've heard of, are deep respiratory, lower respiratory infections. Some of them are, maybe some upper respiratory, but mostly it's lower respiratory pneumonia infections. Now, viruses are very hard to treat. Normally, drugs are designed to target something specific to that virus. There is some drugs out there that are like anti-protease drugs, or like Tamiflu, that can help with the symptoms. All right, and may kind of suppress the feelings of the illness, but it's not killing the virus. You need something very specific. It's not like just a regular antibiotic that can kill a range of bacteria. So viruses are kind of a special breed that needs more targeted drugs to take hold here. Now, they can help they can help treat the symptoms, but they're not killing the virus. So, it's kind of scary, in a way, but it's important, proper hygiene. It's supplementation and proper hygiene. Some people, they don't wash their clothes as often as they should. That, because we're in a new era, in a dangerous situation, clothes need to be washed more often. That will, that reduces the chances of getting illnesses. You know, I would stay out of, you know, open, you know, open places with a lot of people, like, you know, like sports arenas or restaurants until this thing blows past. But that affects the economy. So to be safe for yourself will affect the economy, just like what happened when we had 9/11. You know, everyone stopped going outside, and the economy, you know, dumped, and the president went up on air and said, go shopping. You know, so, you know, but, you know, people are going to be fearful, but it's the proper hygiene is a big part to quelch the pandemic, the outbreaks. You know, it's kind of common sense. You know, we don't all need to have a vaccination. You know, maybe some small percentage of the population may need it to survive. I mean, you know, some people have, you know, diseases that they're already compromised. They have an immune system that's already compromised. They need something, you know, very quickly because their body cannot fight a pneumonia. But most people can get their body boosted, you know, just through some simple things to be able to, you know, fight this. The average person, if they do get the coronavirus and they have a boosted immune system, will have probably a really, really bad type of flu, you know, feeling, vomiting, you know, coughing, having a very bad pneumonia infection. And this is important, that when you have a disease, it's not just the virus. We have bacteria in us. So when you unbalance the environment, all right, the microenvironment, other bacteria could be growing. We have bacteria in our lungs. Even if you're healthy, you got bacteria in your lungs. And if you get sick, it may create an environment where the actual bacteria that's not virus related will grow, and it creates this imbalance. So there are some of these people that have these deep pneumonias aren't just getting antiviral medications to try to suppress the symptoms and try to, you know, help the natural immune system to fight the virus, but they're also being given antibiotics because there are other things going on. That's why it's so important that you have to bring your body up to the highest level it can with the best means that you have before this infection gets into your area and there's a big outbreak, because it will bring down your immune system. Let's say you're, you know, at 100%, you get hit by the virus, your immune system might get down to 60, but you at least have a fighting chance. But if you are already compromised and you're at 60, your immune system is going to go down to 20 and you have a lower chance of survival. So that's, you know, that I think that's the big point is that it's about hygiene and just having some common sense and not get all panicky. You know, we can, you know, fight this, but to say that nutraceuticals is a panacea, that homeopathic remedies is a panacea, and that it will cure this is a fallacy. That's wrong. That's wrong thinking. But what it can do is boost your system to have a fighting chance to be able to produce the antibodies that you need to fight this. Our body's an amazing being, right? Amazing organism in so many different ways, metaphysically and biologically. Our best vaccination is our own immune system, but you have to treat it. You have to treat it with respect and give it what it needs. And then it has a fighting chance. But there are individuals out there, not too many, but there are individuals out there that think that only homeopathic is a panacea. It's not, especially if you have a compromised immune system.
Hey, that's a great way to put it. I couldn't have said it better myself. And I was looking through the comments section, and Toltec made a great point. He said, this guy needs more computer monitors in the background.
Well, I have 8.
Yeah, it's not enough. Not enough. Dude, I love what you're saying, man, because you're being so practical and you're not being extreme on one side or the other. You're looking at things in a very realistic mindset, informed mindset. You're not saying there's one cure for everything. Organic, sometimes there are limitations, man, and that's fantastic. So yeah, keep your immune system as high as possible, folks. Do what you can around others with your with your hands and your clothes. And there's been over a dozen people that have asked me this question in the comments section. So one question I'm going to ask you before we close out here, Dr. Paul, and thank you very much for being a guest on the project, man. Your knowledge is incredible. Rh negative blood, will it have a different effect on people with different blood types?
I don't think so. I mean, just from the from a research perspective, I don't think there's any research out there that's saying that Rh negative blood is more susceptible or less susceptible to the coronavirus. I don't think there's anything out there in the literature that would say that. I could be wrong, but I would have to do a literature query on that.
Oh, absolutely. Now, I've heard, I can't confirm this, but I know there's a lot of people that listen to Leak Project that, they're like, hey man, I've got Rh negative blood. And I have noticed people with with Rh negative blood oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes seem to have more paranormal experiences and kind of like a sixth sense capability. But on a physical aspect, one thing that I can tell, and this is, I mean, you can document this as well, that I guess it maybe has something to do with the copper in their blood, but the electronics, a lot of times that they can't wear watches without the watches break and the lights and issues, electronic.
It's interesting when you say about the copper, there are metal ions that help with the electron transport chain in the mitochondria. So basically your mitochondria creates ATP, your energy. That's your energy. That's the bulk of the energy in your body. All right. So it creates this ATP, and it's taking electrons from glucose. All right. Breakdown of glucose in the glycolysis. All right. And it's moving these electrons through the electron transport chain. And this is just a theory or a hypothesis to prove your point, or to try to prove your point. The enzymes in these complexes, complex 1, 2, 3, and 4, before it goes to the ATP shuttle that creates the ATP at the very end. Complex 1, 2, 3, and 4 moves these electrons through. Inside these enzymes that are in the membrane, the inner membrane, by the matrix of the mitochondria, they have iron in it, and it helps. It has a series of iron atoms, and it helps move the electron through the actual enzyme. So there's this mini how do I want to phrase this? Like a little mini circuit, many circuits in mitochondria, and you have lots of mitochondria in your cells, and you have lots of cells. So you have lots of these little mini circuits that are transferring these electrons to oxygen to help create this pump mechanism for ATP creation. So there is there's this coupling between electron movement. So electron movement, there's a current, right? And I'm not an electrical engineer. I'm just saying that, my understanding of this is, but there's a current, there's a flow, and then it's creating power. All right, this ATP. And I think some individuals, it's very possible that some individuals, and I don't know if it's Rh negative or not, I don't know that, but it's possible that some people, biochemistry is more susceptible to these mini circuits. And if they're bioelectric systems, especially if they're upset, they may go haywire. I think that there is literature out there where individuals that that are expressing emotion, either because they're mad or they're hurt, or there's something that's changing their electrophysiology. It's affecting these micro circuits, and in these enzymes they have these iron sulfur molecules, and it wouldn't surprise me that some people are more susceptible to electronic environments. And that leads to the question, a really good research question, and no one has really a straight answer yet, is there may be some people that are more susceptible to 5G radioactivity, or 5G waves, than others because of these mini circuits.
Hey, thank you for that explanation. Much appreciated. And I was reading through the comments as well as I was listening to you, and somebody said garlic has been a remedy in the past that has helped with certain infections and viruses and such. And I have never researched that into detail. However, I would like to say this. There has been times in the past when I've eaten cloves of garlic, and it's so intense, like it almost burns your mouth a little bit. But there's this product that's called Allison Advanced, and it's from getthetea.com. It's Allison Advanced, just one pill. And it's like a multitude, it's so powerful. It's essentially condensed garlic. So I don't know how many garlic cloves they put into one pill, but that stuff is awesome, man. I definitely take that when there's bugs going around. I'll take 2 a day sometimes when you only need to take 1, but garlic can be really good.
Just to add to what you're saying, that family of produce, like garlic or onions, they are anti-inflammatory. All right. So if someone gets sick, even with just a common cold, what you should do is you should cut garlic, and when you cut it, it activates enzymes in the garlic, and you put some like kosher salt on it. And salt is known to be an antibiotic, right? It can kill bacteria. It's it kills. So the salt in chewing the chopped garlic, and you chew it in your mouth and you swallow it, and it's fresh garlic, non-cooked. It has to be fresh, and that will stimulate the immune system and lower inflammation. And you can do the same thing on chewing onions, and not like a whole onion, maybe like a quarter onion, like a small quarter onion, and chew it and then swallow it, and that will help kind of like kill some bacteria and help with the immune system. But if you have after you do that, after you chew it, then what you do is you take garlic, another clove of garlic, and you chop it. All right, then put it into a pan, and then you grate fresh ginger, which is also anti-inflammatory. You put it in the pan, all right, and then you put a decent amount of water, to make like 2 or 3 cups of tea. Okay, then what you do is you boil that with some turmeric and some like cayenne pepper. Okay, and what turmeric is known to be anti-inflammatory, and the cayenne pepper is a stimulant, all right, to help with the immune system. But you can't do this all the time, because if you do this all the time, your system reaches kind of like it's used to this activity, and it won't react to it. You only want to do this when you're sick. Okay, so you get a bigger bang. You don't want your body to be used to this, right? So you only do this when you're sick, and then you boil that with lemons, and you cut the lemons in slices, and you put a whole lemon in that pan or boiling pot, right? And then you boil that, and then you drink that tea that's created. and then eat the zest from the lemon. And whatever you drink one, like at night, go to bed, it'll stimulate the immune system, and then put in the refrigerator the other two tea amounts, and then reheat it in the morning, for breakfast, and you stimulate the immune system again, and then make another batch, when you're going to bed the next day. Do that for about 3 or 4 days, and you'll notice that your immune system is more active, and you feel your body temperature go up. It's really amazing. But this is just another way to add vitamin C and anti-inflammatories naturally to be able to boost up your immune system. Again, this is not a panacea. This doesn't mean that this will fight all viruses in the world, or all bacteria, or all colds and all that. But what it will do is it will boost your immune system, so your own immunity can produce those antibodies that it needs.
Right on. That's what I'm talking about. Very knowledgeable. This is great information. And if you want to know more, folks, Paul, I've noticed you've been doing a lot of podcasts lately on your YouTube channel, and you've got a great website also, but it seems like you've been spending quite a bit of time on the podcasts.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the stuff that I've been doing is more YouTube related. There's more of a feedback because of the comments. Sometimes the comments are bad, but sometimes they're good. But
Right.
I like that back and forth with the audience, because there are individuals that they don't know where to look, or they have questions, and they want some help. And helping people, I think, is what the whole human experience is. I'm not here to sell anything. Nothing. Zero. Nothing. Zero. It's just information because of what happened to my brother. He passed away from a disease that unfortunately was not diagnosed correctly in enough time. And I am blessed, and so are you, and everyone that's listening, that we are here for this human experience. And we need to make the world a better place. And instead of whining about it, do it. What, one of the coolest things that I saw just recently in the news, it's kind of like a hero of mine just recently. All right. You got this guy, he's a Korean American. He got out of high school, went into the military, the Navy, became a Navy SEAL. Then he went to Harvard. He finished his undergrad, went to Harvard to be a medical doctor, and then he ended up being an astronaut. That's the environment we live in. We can do amazing things if we apply ourselves. But unfortunately, 80% of the population or more is not reaching their full potential. And the world would be the utopia that we wish if people got more involved and realize that this human experience that we're in isn't just about us, about the individual, but it's of the larger community, of the larger. And I'm not a socialist or anything like that. I believe in free market capitalism and all this stuff. But the point that I'm making is that we can make the world a better place by being less egocentric and more giving, instead of more taking. Unfortunately, developed societies, they're insular, and in a sense, and it's about consumption. It's about materialism. It's about owning things. It's about how big is my house compared to your house. It's about all this stuff that doesn't really matter, especially when you see people that you care about die. So, unfortunately, people don't get this revelation until people have died in their circle of friends or family. And then it's too late. But we we can take this as an opportunity to make, we can take this as an opportunity to reach for the stars. We can do amazing things. We have at the cusp amazing technologies that are coming up in medicine and in biotechnologies and in energy. It's almost to the point that if we just think about it, we can do it. We're almost there to that point. Unfortunately, we can't just think of, the cure for this coronavirus, but technology is moving to that point. We're far more advanced in the molecular biology now than that we were, let's say, 30 years ago. When I first started my undergrad, they didn't see, when I started my undergrad, it was in 1990. They were just thinking about sequencing the genome, right? Now you and I can go on the NIH website and sequence any organism that's in the database. And it gives it to you in seconds. So we have at our disposal amazing technologies, and everyone has their own human experience to share, and that collective experience will allow us to propel us into into a better world.
Man, hey, thank you for doing what you do, and definitely looking forward to speaking with you again. I think I actually just subscribed to your YouTube channel, so I'm getting the notifications, which is nice to see. And there's a lot of people in the comment section that have said they just subscribed to your YouTube channel. Great vibes your way, man. And you know what, like you said about certain people, there's always trolls out there. No matter how good you're doing, how much you're helping people, there's going to be somebody out there that can say something negative. Like, go out and give some homeless people organic food, and that person might get on your case for, oh, it's organic, you should give them synthetic. Who knows? I mean, why not? Or you don't give them for full organic, non-GMO food. You gave them something that was good and healthy. Well, you didn't grow that in your backyard. You went out and bought that, so you're not working hard enough for those homeless people. That's the kind of mindset. There's always somebody out there that's a negative Nancy. Yet, with that said, there's so many other people on the opposite spectrum that are good people that will thank you, and you can see from the bottom of their heart. Most of the people that leave comments in Leap Project chat are absolutely amazing. I mean, I was upstairs and I was like, I was thinking about this. Somebody said, "This is my first live chat. It's so awesome to be here." And I just thought, man, what an honor is it to be able to present information to people that are just so kind that they would say something like that in a live chat. Like, wow. I mean, it just, every single day I'm amazed and happy to be here and to be able to speak with people like you, Paul, and have so many amazing listeners in the chat, because it gives me hope. Public, I go out and talk to most people, and I can't have a very good conversation with them. It just gets awkward really quick. So call me the king of awkwardness. And you all keep me grounded, if that's even possible. So thank you very much, everybody, for being here with us. Dr. Paul, let's do this again, man. Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah,
right
definitely.
On. This guy's brilliant, right? I mean, I got to take notes just to keep up with what he's saying, and I'm half an hour behind. Although I do have a time machine, so it does help me get close to that level. I used it a few times during this podcast. Be excellent to each other, everybody. Be safe. Be prepared, not scared. Be prepared, not scared. And I put links in the video description box for those of you that want to get some Allison Advanced, or I've got a special with my friends over at preparewithleapproject.com right now. If you go to preparewithleapproject.com, you can get 2 weeks worth of food for $79. Breakfast, lunches, dinners, snacks. It's grown and packed in the U.S. They've got a 1 month supply, a 3 month supply. There's a multitude of opportunities there. So that way you can be prepared. At worst case scenario, you got to start eating food out of a can, or you start to get that packaged processed food. It tastes good, and Murphy is an optimist. So if you've heard of Murphy's Law, Murphy's an optimist. Be the change, everybody.